I'm Ellen Brown, President of the Rotary Club of Harrisburg. We're part of an international community and humanitarian service organization comprised of 1.4 million members in over 44,000 clubs in more than 200 countries. Rotary leads the world in volunteer service. For more than 112 years, the Rotary Club of Harrisburg has organized impactful local service projects that changes lives and creates hope where it's needed most. Please join us at a Rotary luncheon at the Hilton, service on a Monday, or a Rotary alternate meeting to meet our members who are waiting to welcome you. You can find out more about us at hbgrotary.org. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We hope to welcome you as a member soon.
It is my honor to introduce to you the outgoing president of PSCA, Rich Askey.
So, good afternoon, everybody. So, as Susan said, I'm a proud graduate of Camp Hill School District, just across the river. And it was during my time at Camp Hill where I met Mrs. Thurston, a music teacher who had a tremendous impact on my life. Everybody has that one teacher who touched their lives, and mine was this lady. She was there for me, providing me with a safe space when I needed it. It was partly thanks to her that I started off in my career in public education, and why I have remained a strong advocate for creating safe spaces for students who are hurting, just as Mrs. Thurston did way back then. So I share this story to illustrate for you just how important one caring, supportive adult in a public school can be to a child or a teen, and just how much those interactions can change and shape a person's life, even 40 years later. And I'm going to pause here for my remarks to say, I need to tell you as a group that this is very special for me today, because I've seen how you have changed and touched children's lives in Harrisburg. From the time I was that kid who walked into the airplane hangar they called a school, I remember those Rotary breakfasts way back then. I remember when I had a great partnership with Dr. Cohn and we were able to implement that incredible pre-K program, how much all of you did to support that pre-K program. And I know the work that you do with SciTech and how some of you reach out and work individually with the children in the school districts. So a lot of my remarks that you'll hear about touching lives, I just want to be sure to recognize that the teachers of Harrisburg appreciate you and how much they depend on groups like this to help reach out to those children. So thank you very much for that. So, as the leader of Pennsylvania's largest union of educators and support professionals, I am proud to say that every day teachers like Mrs. Thurston are making a difference in the lives of their students, often in many ways that seem so small to us. When we think about public schools, often we think of the tremendous responsibility of preparing a generation of young people to enter the workforce, to be doctors, artists, entrepreneurs, skilled technicians, lawyers, teachers, innovators, and the professionals of tomorrow. We think of a teacher at the front of the class and students at their desks working away on essays or their math problems. We imagine them in the science labs, in the libraries. And of course, classroom learning is a huge part of the school day, and it's critical to building the foundational knowledge and skills that students need to thrive later in life. But I want to start today by reminding you that every student in our schools is one caring adult away from being a success story. I'm talking about the connections that teachers make with their students, the understanding that a student can talk to a teacher or a school nurse or a counselor when something's going wrong in their lives, whether that be at school or whether it's at home. It's about creating those safe spaces for children Thank you for doing that. I was getting, no. I could have done it so let's move on. Now let's hold that for a little while. Harvard Center on the Developing Child released a study in 2015 that stated in part, every child who winds up doing well has had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive adult. So obviously this shouldn't surprise us. Kids excel when they have adults in their lives who believe in them. This is so critically important, especially at this moment in time in our nation. Public health officials have been raising the alarm for years now about a mental health crisis that is affecting our youth. The need for those caring, those supportive adults is greater now than ever before. The good news is that many students are finding the support they need from teachers and support professionals, groups like yours, in their neighborhood schools. But here's where I get worried. Pennsylvania, along with the rest of the nation, is experiencing crisis level shortages in public schools, in our public schools right now. I've been an educator now for 40 years. Never before have I been so concerned about the future of education in our Commonwealth. And much of it comes down to one simple problem. Not enough college graduates are entering education professions. So if we look at this between the 2012-13 and 2021-22 school years, the number of first-year teaching certificates issued in Pennsylvania declined by 73%. Take that in. That's a huge drop. Teacher and staff shortages have been growing for close to a decade now, and in the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic, we're now in a full-blown crisis. Some school districts are feeling the pain worse than others, but make no mistake, this is a statewide crisis that needs to be addressed so that we continue to have those caring, supportive adults in classrooms, in nurses' office, counselors' offices, to build those connections with students, to give them their safe spaces, and to guide them on the road to success. This is why PSEA has made it our top priority this year to advocate for policies that address the staff shortages in our public schools. So it should come as no surprise that a major factor driving the declining number of new teachers is pay. Starting salaries for educators and other school professionals have not kept up with the cost of living. A recent study from the Economic Policy Institute found that the wage gap between teachers and other similarly educated professions in Pennsylvania is about 15%. Some states do better, many do worse, as you can see on this map. But the mere fact that there is a pay gap and that it is growing is major cause for concern. Talented young people who would make great teachers are choosing other careers because they don't think a teacher's salary is going to pay their bills or their student loans. And unfortunately, the data tells us that they can make some more in other industries. We have to acknowledge this reality and have an honest conversation about how to best to address it. PSEA and we have worked with state lawmakers to develop proposals that would allocate state funding to increase starting salaries for educators and to set a life-sustaining minimum wage for education support professionals, because the shortage is just not teachers. The shortage is also those paraprofessionals, cafeteria workers, the people who make sure that your kids cross the street safely on their way to school. It's completely across every level of professions in education. So we've also called for new investments to make the process of becoming a teacher more affordable and more attractive for college students. This includes dedicating state funding to pay aspiring educators a modest stipend to offset the costs of their student teaching. This measure has bipartisan support in Pennsylvania, and for good reason. Currently, student teachers serve full-time at their placements for 12 weeks without receiving a cent. Now look at other professions. They go out, they do internships. Probably some of you have interns that you work with in your professions. And what happens with those interns? They get paid. Meanwhile, and I didn't realize this because I graduated, yes, in the Stone Age. And I did not realize this, but now colleges are making people who are student teaching sign a paper promising that they will not work any other job while they're student teaching. So compound that onto it. So we have members in our student PSEA program. We represent students and we give them liability insurance and all those other things in colleges across Pennsylvania. They tell me when I meet with them and talk to them that they struggle just to afford to commute to and from their placements, which can be, in some places, it can be an hour or more drive for them just to get to the school they're teaching in. A state program to pay those student teachers a modest stipend will remove a heavy financial burden on the way to becoming a teacher. PSEA has also spoken out in support of measures aimed at diversifying Pennsylvania's educator workforce. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania trails most states when it comes to the diversity of our teachers. In 2020-21, teachers of color accounted for only 6% of Pennsylvania's educator workforce, while students of color accounted for 36% of all students, according to a report from Research for Action. Nearly half of schools and more than 1/3 of school districts have no teachers of color at all. So this is also another major concern because research tells us that students of color have better academic performance and improved graduation rates when they are taught by teachers of color. Some school districts have worked to address this lack of teachers of color by recruiting teachers from within their communities through a great new program I want to tell you about. It's called Grow Your Own. You may have heard about it a little bit. So the idea is simple. I think I missed something. Yes, I did. This is PSEA member Jermaine Bailey and his daughter, Shawana Bailey, both paraprofessionals in the York City School District. And they are among the first graduates of York School District's Grow Your Own program. So this fall, they're signing their papers, and with the support of the district, they are now certified teachers and they've completed professional programs. So we want to see more successes like this and more Grow Your Own programs with the help. Of course, it takes money and we need the state to help fund those initiatives. All of these proposals require public investments. It's critical that we recognize that these are investments in our people, in our students, their future, and yes, investments in the workforce of Pennsylvania. As I mentioned, the students in Pennsylvania's public schools right now are the leaders, the professionals, and the skilled workers of tomorrow. They need our investment now, and we need them so that Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and our nation can look forward to the future with confidence and pride. We must also grapple with how best to ensure that all students have equal access to a quality education. Earlier this year, some of you may have seen that the Commonwealth Court ruled after a lengthy trial that Pennsylvania's public school funding system is so broken that it violates the state constitution. Solving this problem will take a multi-year commitment from our elected leaders to ensure that our public school students have the resources they need to succeed. Excuse me, I'm getting over a summer cold. I'm no longer infectious, so you don't have to worry about that. We must address these inequities head on, and we need the commitment of both Democrats and Republicans to do what's right for Pennsylvania's 1.7 million public school students. So we at PSEA, of course, are ready to help in any way we can. Every student deserves to have, as I said in those beginning, those caring, supportive adults who will look out for them and guide them in the right direction. That means meeting students where they are academically, socially, and emotionally. That might mean an academic program that prepares students to attend a four-year college or university after graduation. Many public schools offer academic programs that directly prepare students for college study in high-demand fields, such as engineering and computers, meeting students where they are. That might mean preparing them to attend a technical school or apprenticeship after graduation to give them the skills they need to land family-sustaining jobs. And a community college may be the best path for some students. I've been waiting to deliver that line. So, well, I'm gonna get there now. I'm gonna get there. So we are fortunate, though, in Pennsylvania to have many community colleges with high-quality programs that offer affordable options, particularly for economically disadvantaged students. So since you asked which one, I'm just going to tell everybody here, I myself attended Hack right out of high school before transferring to the Westminster Choir College in New Jersey, where I completed my music education degree. For some students, the best path may be a career and technical education program. Pennsylvania has done a particularly good job of supporting career and tech, with Republicans and Democrats coming together to prioritize these programs in recent years. Practical hands-on experience and training empower students to develop those in-demand skills. Of course, there are more skilled technical job openings than we have workers right now here in Pennsylvania. So we need to expand those career and tech opportunities and get the word out to more students about the jobs that are in such high demand. A strong education system and a well-trained workforce are powerful drivers of economic growth and prosperity. When we provide quality education and comprehensive training opportunities, we attract businesses, foster innovation, and we create jobs. Education really is the foundation upon which the future is built. But that education, it has to be available to everyone, and it has to be equitably available to everyone. The quality of your school should not be dependent on what your zip code is. That is what we believe in PSEA, and that is what we are fighting for. A public education system that is transformative force in our Commonwealth, shaping lives, opening doors of opportunity, and strengthening our communities. So thank you for inviting me here to speak today. This was really I was very honored. I appreciate your time and your attention, and I would be willing to take some questions if time allows.
Rich, thanks so much for all the good work you do, and congrats on your retirement.
Thank you.
I see on my newsfeed daily ads from the Commonwealth Foundation about the Lifeline scholarships. And so I'd be anxious, as that's the big stalemate in the state budget, what your position is that isn't out there as frequently, I would say. Thank you.
Well, you just don't read the right newspapers. Our position is they're not scholarships, they're vouchers. If it walks like a voucher, it talks like a voucher, it is a voucher. And if you look at studies recently, one came out of University of Michigan, vouchers do not work. Let me tell you some of the things that happen with vouchers. And this is overwhelming looking at states that have them already. In our plan, parents get in the current plan, parents get $10,000 to send their kid to a school. First of all, look at various schools. Those parents in Harrisburg are not going to be able to make up the difference between that $10,000 and the tuition in a private school, first of all. So you're already not giving these kids the equitable access that you supposedly do under a voucher. Second of all, the study also shows that these kids who somehow make it up and get to go, a high percentage of these kids return to their neighborhood school. And meanwhile, they have a gap. The thing that I found was interesting in this study was these students have a gap in learning that was higher than the gap in learning that they experienced during COVID when they came back to schools. That shot, I have to admit, that like really surprised me when I read this study. So vouchers are not, I know people want a silver bullet. I know that. Vouchers are not that silver bullet. What is helpful is, first of all, that instead of taking $100 million, see, you're probably sorry you asked me this. Instead of taking that $100 million that they say wasn't coming from schools, is to start responding to the Commonwealth Court case where it says we are not funding our schools equitably, and that our students in Harrisburg, in Allentown, in Reading, in Wilkesburg, all those schools, it's time that we make sure that they have equitable opportunities in those schools.
Rich, I know a couple of other teachers who have been active in education associations, and they are especially passionate about the career path that they have been in, just as you are. There seems to be a connection there. Tell us about the route that took you from being a music teacher to being an executive in the education association.
Well, I won't use names because, you know, that's just not what you do. Actually, I was teaching in Harrisburg at the time, and I had a teacher next to me who was close to the end of her career. And I had a principal that was very unkind. Very unkind. And because that person was older, she was riding that teacher daily. And one day there was raised voices in the room next to me. And we didn't have, I should have started off by saying no one would be a building rep in our building. No one would be a building rep. I heard raised voices. I knew what was going on. When it went done, I waited a few minutes and I went over to the room to see how my next door neighbor was. And she was collapsed because of all the pressure. And that's when I decided, I called the union that night and said, you have a building rep. And then I went to the principal the next morning and said, don't you ever address another teacher like that in this building. There's a way to do it, and I'm going to hold you accountable to do it. And then I just, you know, I remember my first day as Harrisburg president, local president, was my birthday. Things seem to happen bizarre on my birthday, but it was my birthday, and we were in a court case against the school district. I don't know if any of you remember when we had the court case against the school district because a teacher called the police when he was assaulted in the school building, and the school district reprimanded that teacher in some serious ways, and we started, and then we had then our lawyer said, you know, you need to take this to court. It's more of a constitutional thing, blah, blah, blah. It was my first day as local president. There I am in Commonwealth Court sitting up front with the judge, and he calls lunch break. We come out for lunch, and there's a myriad of news folks, news media from across the country. And I did my first interview with MSNBC. So I have what they'll put in my epitaph is probably baptism by fire.
Rich, first of all, I want to applaud your comments as far as what the Supreme Court mentioned and the egregious situation that our public schools find themselves with in the Commonwealth. But it seems to me that a lot of that is due to the funding. And don't we need to change the funding structure in order to really bring equity to the school districts?
Absolutely, and that's what that court case is really about, that we have to come up with some new and inventive ways of funding our schools, that we should be, and right now, wealthier suburb districts basically have a larger pot of money to spend on their children than disadvantaged communities like Harrisburg. So it is not equitable. And I have to tell you, I'm just going to get a plug in here. After teaching in Harrisburg for 32 years, those folks who teach and work in those schools are some of the most caring, devoted people I've ever had the pleasure to work with. I'm being told one more, so you're it.
Hey, how are you? I just have a question. How healthy do you think the relationship is between homeschooled students and the public school system?
Did she really ask that? I think that it's a choice that parents make, and I think that by all means, it's a parental choice. And in most cases, students are, I know there's been a few like bumps in the road, but most cases, school districts allow the kids to come in and participate in sports, extracurricular activities and all that. But we are a social society. We are a society that depends on our interactions with each other and learning how to live and work and grow as a community. And while I respect the choices and it's their choice and that's the way it is, I think that there's a reason why many people say public schools are the backbone of this country. And I think it's mostly because, how do you sit at a table and learn how to have good manners with your friends? I know that seems little, but it's not to the kindergarten teacher, How do you learn to problem solve with another friend? And that's one of the things that public schools offer that you're not going to get in your home schools. So, thank you. All right, thank you all very much.